For the same, I'm going to turn to the two most successful Indian faces of fashion, and neither of them really need an introduction. So I have with me Tarun Tahiliani and Naeem Khan. I'm going to begin this session by asking them a couple of questions, at the end of which we're going to keep it open in case any of y'all have questions to ask them. Tarun, I'm going to begin with you. As the unarguably the king of couture in India, do you feel we are redefining what couture means for us today? Is couture dying and making way for demi-couture? Do you risk the death of couture at the hands of fast fashion, fast consumption? Or is this something that you feel Indian wear doesn't need to have to worry about?
Well, I want to just start by saying that our idea of fashion in this country till very recently revolved more around style than moments that kept changing, because really the influences didn't change as frequently as they did in the West. In the West, you can still, when you do costume history, see particular periods and, very strong influences in how people dress. And there was Josephine Bonaparte, there were people, you see through the painters' works, because this was all documented in portraiture. But in India, because it was so much about textile and that was wrapped, and that regions had different kind of things, and that maybe the Mughals brought in something, and then the English next, there were huge periods, centuries, where fashion didn't exist except as clothing and style and embellishment. So our definition of this kind of Western fashion is a very recent construct in this country. Because, even till 20 years back, everyone went to the tailor and did what they want. So it's only, really post-independence that this all started. I think that couture actually is also something we take for granted, handmade things made in a certain way. It's just that it wasn't about construction and a Western idea of fit. And in the classical way, I think that kind of couture, as we know, French couture, all those construction techniques and all are only coming in now because people have learned this over the last 20, 30 years. And we also have the luxury of millions of hands, which a lot of the world doesn't have anymore. So, apart from the beading, that construct is coming in with a few designers' works here. But fast fashion also has its place. Lifestyles changed. People are all, we're all in T-shirts, running around in jeans. That's fast fashion, has to be mass-produced. And also because we're so consumeristic, that's the only way people can buy vast amounts of things, because if Zara didn't produce millions of pieces, they couldn't sell at these prices. So it's all about the economics and the economies of scale and everything. So I don't know. Sometimes when my mind gets boggled with these questions, because I don't know how to generalize things. There are many different layers that exist. India's coming into its own right now with this whole thing of constructed clothing and fashion being very important, apart from textile and what brand you're wearing and how it fits and how it's cut. So I think that because we're a new economy, this is on the rise here, even though this might be in decline, say, in France or somewhere else, or, their main customers might be Arab or whatever the case might be.
But you are saying that the way we look at couture, the way we define couture, it has a very different connotation from what it means in the West for the buyer and the wearer.
Yes, it does. And it's also so occasion specific. Most people don't go and get beautiful things. There's no concept of a day suit in Indian couture. It might be something that very chic Americans or the French might have done. Before there was all this wonderful ready-to-wear, at a time where it was normal to get, if you were wealthy, to get things customized and bespoke, because that's the way the world, it hadn't evolved to this fast fashion. Today I see some of my billionaires friends, I say, is that Chanel? They say, oh, just a Zara jacket, I'll wear it twice and throw it away. I see your jacket, she said, I bought it this way because I needed something to look a bit frayed. I've never worn my clothes enough. So, there are different things. She's trying to be trendy, someone else is trying to be something. The world's on its head. Everything's mixed up. There are different people doing different things. There are different cycles. And new economies today, obviously as people make fortunes, and there's this whole reversal of the old aristocracy to the new aristocracy, they want to do all these things. This is how they define their entry into luxury.
Thanks, Tarun. I'm going to turn to you, Naeem. Firstly, congratulations on your first show in India. I've been reading that you've been looking forward to coming home. This is some sort of a homecoming. Why did you wait so long? Why was the time right now for Naeem Khan to show at a fashion week in India?
Fern Malice, who used to run IMG many years ago, and she wanted, from 7 years ago, she's asking me to come. The problem had been that my business in America was growing so rapidly that I just felt that coming to India would not make sense for me because I couldn't even keep up with what I was doing in America. And then it always becomes it was a big conflict for me where the body sizes, that what I design in America is so geared for my women in Texas or in LA, and it's a whole different structure when you're constructing those clothes. And I just felt like to put it in another format for India was too much. It was too much for me, and I wouldn't do justice. And over the years, my business has grown, the teams have grown, and suddenly in the last 4 or 5 years with designing for the First Lady or all these movie stars wearing my stuff, and especially the Bollywood stars who are wearing these things. And I just felt that, people in India were kind of paying attention to me, so I felt like, why not come to India? I'm not here to do business. I'm here basically because I'm invited by IMG, and I want to it's my home, and I want some sort of an acknowledgement of where I've been.
Are you looking at India as a market, as a potential market? Would you have any plans in the immediate or distant future to come here and to set
Definitely. But I just find that it's when you sell in America or the West, in other parts of like Middle East and all the other places, the retail is a whole different structure the way it's done. India is still not ready to retail that way. Say, for example, I retail through 24 Neiman Marcuses, for example. So then the production runs so smoothly. You have so many pieces being distributed. I just find that it would be, in a company like mine, it would be very difficult to make in like 3 places. It just becomes, it just doesn't, economically it doesn't work. Unless I do other things. So use my collection more as a something to create the buzz,
Right.
but then filter it down to do other things would be less expensive and affordable that I could distribute to many different people. So my interest actually lies in India to do cosmetics, to do fragrance, to do, small luxury goods. And I feel that's where I'm concentrating, but I just want to keep the buzz of Naeem Khan going in
Right,
India.
right. Actually, that's an interesting point. I'm going to ask a question to both of you all. Internationally, some of the most well-reputed designers sort of enjoy doing these one-off collaborations, whether it is Karl Lagerfeld for H&M, or you've seen the various numerous Topshop collaborations. My question to you, Tarun, is why do we not see so much of this in India? And would you, as a high fashion designer, be open to it? And then my question to you, Naeem, is this something you would look at? And would that dilute your design philosophy in any way? So, Tarun, first to you.
Well, I think the collaborations in clothes haven't happened because I think it goes back to what Naeem Khan's saying, which it filters down that even at the mass level, the stores, even though some of them have, much bigger retail formats and there are many places, it's not working in the same professional methodology that it works on in the States, where they take actual design interest. And, a collaboration starts a year and a half before you hit the store. Every time someone comes with an idea, they want it yesterday. Right. You're going to new territory, There are stores even like Karmic trying to do a much more accessible fashion, but it's not the same. I mean, these are not collaborations, these are just price point driven things. And frankly, it's not what we do, so we don't have the wherewithal to do it. We've tried it with companies with brands like Levi's, as you might remember. Yes. But again, I think the fundamentals are because they wanted real diamonds on the jeans. I'm like, who wants Levi's with real diamonds? I mean, putting Swarovski was bad enough, I mean, your buyer who's coming into the Levi's store is not looking for a Swarovski encrusted jeans. They might go to Cavalli or to, Gucci at one point. So, people often here look at an idea out of the West and say, oh, well, we'll do our own Indian version, and it doesn't necessarily work. You have to have a much more fundamental reason why you're doing something. And I think that, it's worked with the watches. So we're now expanding the line with Timex. So it's worked. But you work with very professional companies. They source for you. They do that. That's their job because I don't know how to do it. We can design. And those sort of collaborations have half a chance then.
Great, thanks.
See, I just feel like in India, I don't know how even a collaboration would work. It would be like what Tarun said. It could be a design collaboration, but you don't even have enough retail outlets to like justify the economics of the collaboration. Like for in America, for example, if I were to do a collaboration with Target, Target would give me straight away first $1 million it's just a collaboration. I don't do anything. I design the collection. I hand over the paperwork to them. They entirely produce it. They do they do the advertising. They really make it work. And me as a designer, I walk away with that money, but I mean, I do work for it in the sense of like I make sure that it's up to my standards and all that. So how will that work in India? I mean, like, it would be too much effort for the revenue that it would generate. So it becomes kind of, unless it's mass in some way, it doesn't make sense. In our field, it would be very difficult.
My question to you next, Naeem, and I'd like Tarun to answer it as well, is as a designer who primarily works with contemporary silhouettes and does a lot of red carpet dressing and beautiful gowns, you have gone on print saying that a certain element of your Indianness in terms of the embroidery, the beadwork, and what the legacy that you have inherited from your father is what you use in your clothes. And Tarun, on the other hand, with your beautiful Indian bridal wear ghagras, and that you've told me recently that you've reached out to Italian cutters and now are making gowns with that sort of a finish. My question to you both is, are the lines blurring between what we now consider as ethnic Indian, between what we now consider as contemporary? You're using an Italian cutter, and you primarily work with beautiful Indian wear, and you work with beautiful cocktail wear, and there are some elements of Indianness to it, without screaming India, without screaming ethnic. Do you feel the lines are blurring, and do you feel that's where our sense of style is going to move in the future?
I think it's very, the world is becoming a global village, okay? So when you think of where Tarun wants to go, his focus was primarily India at one point, right? Now when you think of what's happening in the world, I mean, it's all one. Somebody goes on the internet, I mean, they want to look in that, like, you know, it's all one. So, like, for example, my collection, you think of embroidery. Embroidery has been around in India for a very, very long time. But when you look at Hollywood, for example, I mean, when I first went to America to work, I used to work for a designer called Halston. And at one dinner, I had a woman by the name of Edith Head, who was the most amazing costume designer for Paramount Pictures, sitting next to me. And I was a young boy, and we had, and I'll never forget my conversations with her, because she was like so intrigued with what I was doing, because it was modern, it was Indian. For example, I was taking Andy Warhol's poppies, and I was taking Indian tiki work, and I was designing it with putting tiki in poppies. So you're mixing modern, crazy stuff with Indian traditional hand-cut tiki. So, and you know, all that, I mean, the world today, what Tarun has the Italian tailors, I'm taking modern things and I'm putting it. So it's there's a big business with that. There's a lot of audience for that. There's a less audience if it is all very ethnic or Indian. Then you have only Indian people, or you have only, like, you know, people who are having an Indian party who's going to wear that. But we want to make clothes which will make economic sense, and you have a bigger audience. And I think by blurring what we do, which is all this beautiful handcrafty things, with something simpler, which is not simpler, but, you know, acceptable to a wider audience, is going to make our business huge.
Interesting. Tarun?
Well, because we were starting to do a little more structured clothing, I felt that while exactly the converse, you know, Naeem comes to India to do his embroidery, I had to go outside to bring in the technology to be able to construct things beautifully, because typically if someone's going to wear a lehenga from me, they might have a black tie the night before, and they could be wearing Dior, Chanel, Cavalli, Naeem Khan, whatever, right? I don't think that these sort of people should dress anymore to two different standards. I think that anyway, since we're talking about style, I think that also today, if someone's very Indian, or very Western. For me, when I see someone at the wedding, very Indian one day, very Western one day, trying to look like a different person, to me, that's not style at all. I think a certain a particular kind of person has a particular kind of style. So you might, if you wear a lot of Western clothes, you generally might prefer paler colors, more toned down things, maybe not so much bling. And if you're very Indian, then you might prefer, much lighter things. But I think that's very important to see. We just like to bring in more technology to help with everything. And then the sari blouses should also be made like a Western corset. Why should it be this four-daughter thing? Because my customer's not wearing that anymore. They don't need me to do that. So as people wear more and more Western clothes and spend money on this kind of construction and get used to this idea of luxury, I think that Indian clothing at the top has to keep up with it. It has to stick with this. I mean, forget even going outside, even for our customers over here. I mean, I learned all this from Inal Modi when she was my first client, big couture client, and it would always be this thing, and samples would be sent back and forth, and because we didn't know this, our tailors didn't know this. They're not exposed to this life. And you just fast forward the process by flying in pattern makers and modelists to come and help you and teach the studio to do the next thing.
Tarun, my next question is for you. As someone who predominantly is revered and considered the final word on bridal wear, how easy or how difficult is it to keep reinventing the silhouette, the colors? There's no season to be followed. A bride is a bride is a bride. An Indian bride may change marginally over a period of time in her choice of colors, in the amount of skin she wants to show. With Western wear, it's easier to play around with silhouettes. It's easier to play around and change one's philosophy or tweak one's philosophy every 6 months. How do you effortlessly do that season after season? Does season have any meaning for you? Is it seasonless fashion?
It has some season because obviously the fabrics you use and the kind of colors and let's say particularly the weight, you might use different weights in winter to summer, but that's where it goes. It's not a trend-driven thing, although a movie might influence the NRIs, for instance, But in general, I keep telling people bridal is about individuality. It's the day you're not meant to be on a trend, Trend is also something engineered a bit by stores and magazines because, well, stores, not magazines. Sorry.
Thank you, Tarun.
Sorry. Stores, because they want to have everything in a particular color. It's easy for retail. It makes sense. You can buy the whole package, from stores. But actually, bridal should be very individualistic and always has been over here. I mean, I don't know whether it's easy or not. It's something I do, so I don't think about it. I go back to work and do it. It's very much about embroideries. It doesn't change so much. The big change has been that now the pundits out of the mandap and the stilettos are on, people want to dance. So bridal cannot weigh 20 kilos anymore, which anyway I thought made brides look bedraggled and awful. I think you should be light at the top and have a bit of magic and, it's almost become too much. It's kind of like you feel like you're choking when you look at brides because there's too much makeup, too much jewelry, too much embroidery. It's vulgar, and they don't even look like themselves. The makeup artist wants to be a designer. I've seen them transform beautiful girls into drag queens. I'm like, what are you doing? You can't put pink glitter liner on a girl who's going to wear a jadao necklace. It's awful. So, it's something we do. I'm working on the next couture collection. We're doing much lighter things. Where, again, the construction has come in there. There are Mughal kurtas in soft tulle, which will have 200 kalis, but done in this particular section of godes with horsehair. All these things. If in the past you put 450 kalis, and you can't walk, you can't dance. So it has to change. It will change. Once you get used to the construction and the luxury of fit, you're not going back to something that doesn't fit. I mean, nobody's going to do that. When you buy beautiful Italian shoes, you're not going back to the shoemaker on Colaba Causeway to say, give it to me because it's 5,000 rupees. Damn, you'll pay those 500 euros. You'll just do it. I mean, what's the point of having money if you don't do it? So I think that's here to stay. I think across the board, all fashion, we're going to learn. It's the world of comparative advantage. We take what they have and bring it in, and they take what we have, and that's what it is.
Right. Before I come to you, Naeem, I want to introduce everybody to Ritu Kochar from INIFD, who's also joined us on this panel. Hi, Ritu.
Hi,
Ritu, as someone who strongly believes in fashion and fashion education, my question to you is, for the longest time, Delhi and Bombay have been the uncrowned fashion capitals of India. and with all the colleges that y'all have sort of instituted across the country, do you see a lot of great design talent coming from tier 2 towns, from the smaller cities? Do you feel they have any added advantage? It could be just being a part of a city that has a hugely rich textile heritage. Do you feel they have any added advantage, or do you still feel it's more Bombay, Delhi centric?
No, Priya, I think having institutes in places, smaller cities apart from Bombay and Delhi and big metros, it definitely is an added advantage because the student there knows that the city has, every city we know has a different culture. They have their own textiles, their printing. Suppose somebody comes from Gujarat, they have their own fabrics, their printings, their embellishments, embroideries. So this student, in any case, we know when a designer, goes down the past and brings in, designs something, he tries to put in his signature style. So using that particular embroidery that is there from the place or the printing definitely becomes an added advantage. And with us, with the student base of 20,000 students, it's really great for us because our students who are designing in Gujarat go to Punjab, and Punjab children go to, Calcutta. So they are exchanging ideas, they're exchanging views, and the kind of Gen Next we've displayed here on Lakme Fashion Week, we've had students from very smaller cities. We had Shubham display his collection. He comes from a very small town. So these children are definitely, it's not confined to metros only. See, you can't have only creative people living in metros.
Yeah. Thank you. My last question is to Naeem. Naeem, as someone whose everyday clients include the First Lady and Eva Longoria and some of the most beautiful red carpet loyalty, how do you translate your style, your signature style, then to a real woman? Who do you see? Who do you design for? Do you see Michelle Obama with the Real Woman's Life? What goes on in your head?
Real Woman's Life, I love that. It's real.
None of those women are real. Okay. See, when I design the collection, I'm keeping quite a few women in mind. You're designing for the First Lady, you're designing for the movie star, you're designing for the normal woman who lives in Houston, Texas, but she loves glamorous things. And how can I put these clothes in the stores that you can just pick up and zip up and go? So you have to keep all that in mind. But for the First Lady, it's a little different. So when I'm designing the runway, I'm not thinking of the First Lady because that's like its occasion, it's different things that's happening to her. So then I can't have the collection based on that. So the collection primarily is based on the real woman, but very movie star, very red carpet that you make a statement from. So it's basically totally Hollywood driven. Yeah.
And is that easy to then translate? Do you find it easy for a buyer to go up to a store and pick up something that looks amazing on Eva Longoria and to buy into that philosophy? And
if you look at my clothes, actually they're very simple. Yes, even the beading is pretty simple because I study, you look at old Hollywood, stars, or you look at all the different Hollywood costume designers, the kind of embroideries they were using. So I try to make it as modern as possible, but it's classic. So what women relate to my clothes is because they're very wearable. I'm not trying to change fashion. What I'm doing is actually keeping it simple, keeping it affordable, and I've got it right with the way the cuts are, because I've got an amazing team. And when you keep doing it on and on and on, now it becomes like you can do it in your sleep, right? I understand that my cocktail dress has to look like this, and then I also know how to place my embroidery, because embroidery can be very tricky. It can either be super tacky, or you could be too heavy, or, and I've done crazy things when I'm doing like like for example, this winter I did all the windows of Bergdorf Goodman for, but they were like, Naeem, we want the back whole wall is moving and it's all mirror. So when the idea was like, what do I do with that? So I said, okay, let's put some more mirror on top of mirror, because let's make it disappear. Because, so I did these dresses entirely in hand-cut mirror. And you can only do that in India, where you can have some guy sitting there and cutting mirrors to any shape you want. I mean, you can't get that anywhere in the world. But my clothes are actually very, very simple when you look at them. But the intricacy that comes from India is all that beautiful embroidery that I try to do. I don't mix too many things. So if I'm using one bead, I'll just keep it within that. I don't do like beads and this and that. I mean, it's simple.
Great. I think that's all from me. I want to know if anybody in the room has any questions for either three of our guests today. And do we have mics? Yeah. Anybody? Yes. Any questions?
Hello, sir. Good evening. Everywhere we go, it means...
Sorry, which sir are you addressing? This sir?
Okay, both of them.
Okay, great.
Both
okay,
of them.
great.
Both of them are great designers, and I want to know my answers. According to you, what do you feel fashion is? Because everybody has their own definitions of fashion. And you are, very great fashion designers. So I just want to know what you think fashion is. What you have in your mind when you design something, when you design a costume.
Very clever, Naeem. Well, it's different things to different people, and that's what defines different designers. There are different categories of things. You design at different times to different people or different categories. As Naeem is explaining, his cocktail dress is black tie. We'll do something for Michelle Obama. It's different. And, there are some designers who prefer to be very reticent and just love draping, or, to be a designer, you're expressing something that you have within you. And then ideally, if you want to survive to be a designer, you have to find some fit with the market or a section or a segment that you can connect what you love to do with a particular kind of buyer or man or woman or whatever, so that then the wheels keep turning. And that's really a personalized thing. It depends from person to person. And usually designers who sustain or have longevity, there's a lot of talent that never makes it because they don't have the right business partners. But the ones who do are ones that develop a recognizable identity or a style that comes from within, that they keep honing on, as Naeem said, over time, and making more and more sophisticated and refined. I hope that gave you some answer. It's a difficult question to answer.
I wanted to know your view.
This is my view.
Okay, no.
Entirely.
Same for me.
Thank you. And yeah, one more question. At the time when you guys were young, means at the
We're
time...
still young. What do you mean we won't be?
No, and means very early time when you entered this industry, the fashion line. Means why did you enter it? What thing came in your mind that, yes, I want to become a fashion designer? What was that thing?
I tell you, it's actually, I feel that you're born with it. Since I was a kid, I was always very intrigued by, maybe not fashion, but it could be a color, it could be a flower, it could be certain things. And later on, even now, I kind of still go back to that same feeling. When I was 14, I was sitting with my girlfriend at that time, and I remember she telling me, when I dressed the first lady for the first time, she said, "Oh my God," and she was literally in tears, and she said, "You were 14 and you said to me that you were fascinated with Jackie O." Can you imagine being 14 in India, living at Haji Ali at that time? I was fascinated with Jackie O, and I loved her style, and one day I'm going to make a dress for the First Lady of the United States. Wow. So it happens. So if you have a dream and a vision, you can make it happen, and you just keep going at it.
Thank you, sir.
If there aren't any more questions, we'd like to wrap up the session. Sorry, you have one last question.
Last. No, she wants me to answer.
Same question I wanted to know.
Oh, sorry, Darren.
Okay, so I also, as Naeem said, sketched from the time I was 5. And my poor father, who was in the Navy, kept trying to make me join the Navy. And I said, "You've got to be absolutely nuts." That's at least you start by knowing what you can't do, okay? Then you figure out of the many options, you hone it down to what you can do. And I always sketched, and I won this Best Artist Prize in school because you draw these big processions of people in all these amazing clothes. And I remember my professor saying, "What are you going to do with this? What is the meaning of this?" And I said, "I don't know. I draw it because I like it. I don't, when I go to art school, need an intellectual decision of what I need to do, I just draw this because I liked it. I wish I had kept some of them."
Especially in those days when fashion was nothing. Your father must be thinking, what a crazy loony trying to make fashion in India.
I had to go to business school, I had to go to UPenn undergraduate, do Wharton, all just to keep my father's nerves intact, okay? I sold oil fields equipment, we used to do fashion quietly in the evening. It was terrible, there was no fashion over here. Naeem was lucky, he went off and, apprenticed or trained under Halston, who was a great designer. I just saw you in the film, by the way. And you must get the film. He's in it on this great designer Halston's life. His movie star debut. So
those were crazy times. I tell you, there is a lot of luck that is involved in all this. I mean, you can be a great designer. I know so many great designers, but they're struggling, right? I just feel it's a whole combination of things. In my life, I met the right man at the right time. All that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a combination of factors.
Okay,
Thank
guys.
you, sir.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Thanks, Tarun and Naeem.
Thank you, guys.
So, before we close for today, I just actually would like to request Ritu Kocher to say a few words.
Thank you, guys.
So on behalf of INIFD, each of the panelists will be receiving a small memento as a thank you for participating in our session. Oh. First, we'll start with Saket Dankar, IMG Reliance Head of Fashion. Who's on it? No, it's fine. Who's on it? Oh, Naeem Khan. Thank you very much, Naeem, for participating and for coming to Lakme Fashion Week this season. To our moderator, Priya Tana. And last but certainly not least, Tarun. We'd like to take one group shot, as Tarun does need to catch a flight urgently. If you could please hold for 1 minute, just before we close the session, we'd like to have INIFD, the presenting sponsor for this workshop, say a few words.
Thanks. On behalf of International Institute of Fashion Design, I'd like to thank all the panelists, guests, media, and audience to be an integral part of the Fashion Workshop Series 8. Every season, this thoughtful, informative exercise is conducted where top eminent professionals, journalists, design editors, and celebrities come together in the common platform, Fashion Workshop Series by INIFD at Lakme Fashion Week, shapes the future of young designers. The idea of coming together to share, exchange views, ideas, and experience is a very vital exercise as it gives the word fashion a new meaning and a new learning. INIFD family is proud to witness Nifdian Shubham Kumar's collection, India Lives Here, in the Gen Next category today at Lakme Fashion Week. INIFD is proud to be the official knowledge partner of Lakme Fashion Week. It enables us to stand for the true cause of fashion and promote new, fresh talent. we have joined hands to take Indian fashion to greater heights together, move forward to another season to redefine the future of fashion. Our commitment of spreading fashion and design education is strengthened with the recognition received by our students at premium forums like Lakme Fashion Week. This biannual event showcases collection for all to follow and join the league of the fashion conscious. We feel it is a great effort to integrate education and information to fashion weeks. The boundless enthusiasm of all INIFD students and our pan-India centers to be an integral part of Lakme Fashion Week has been very significant. 8 INIFD designers have made it to the main shows at the biggest platform to showcase their collection along with designers of national and international fame. Hundreds of students have got a chance to be a core member of the implementation team at LFW to learn management techniques, and thousands of garments by INIFD student designers have been displayed at the exclusive INIFD stall, The Source, along with other top designers. INIFD, in its 18 years of existence, has merged into a leading fashion and design hub with around 20,000 students passing out every year. Our mission is to take fashion education to the masses at the grassroots level to generate creativity and give birth to fresh young talent. We prepare our designers for professional excellence in design, management, fashion, and business by providing premier educational experience that fosters creativity, career focus, and carving our students into Gen Next designers. International Institute of Fashion Design is the first educational institute in the world to completely digitize education. INIFD programs are supported by Istituto di Moda Borgo Milan that helps our students get the desired exposure of the ever-changing fashion scenario. Today's workshop was an exercise to bring to light the truth that trends come and go, but a personalized style must remain. With no matter how many trends pass, style is very personal. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank IMG Reliance and thank each one of you present here to make this event a big success. Thank you and enjoy the shows. Thank you.
On behalf of IMG Reliance and Lakme Fashion Week, we'd like to thank INIFD, without whom this session would not have been possible. As well, would like to draw your attention to a talent box show starting in our source in approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Hymn by Pranav Mishra and Shaima Shetty. Please do make your way to the talent box at the source. Thank you.
Okay, Dhiren, Johan, Satis, Johan. Come, girls. Okay, come. We have Himangi, Alicia, Radhika, Erika, Diva, Surili, Kanishta, and Soni. Okay, the theme of Arpan